This red-haired man who's being chased around by his wife for cuddles is our male protagonist. Just a month ago, he was still working himself to the bone, taking any job he could get, desperately trying to earn medical expenses for his seriously ill younger brother. By pure coincidence, or perhaps bad luck, one day, while delivering food, he suddenly collided head-on with someone. The man in front of him was undeniably handsome, yet something about him felt deeply off. He was just about to ask out of concern whether the man wasn't feeling well, when the words never had the chance to leave his mouth, because the white-haired man suddenly pressed his lips against his. Kissing him as he spoke, the white-haired man said, "I'm in a bit of a hurry right now. Let me borrow this for a moment." A pink, mystical energy instantly overflowed into the air. The compatibility between the two of them was so high that even the white-haired man was shocked. The white-haired man was a hybrid, born from the union of a human and a mask spirit. The situation had been urgent just now, so he grabbed Peter and took a fierce gulp of his vital essence. Peter, dizzy and lightheaded from the kiss, still hadn't processed what was happening when the white-haired man had already raised a single finger to his forehead, murmuring a spell under his breath. Forget everything that just happened? What kind of nonsense was that? He'd just been kissed by a stranger. How could he possibly forget something like that just because someone said so? Before Peter could finish speaking, an overwhelming drowsiness washed over him, and he collapsed straight into the white-haired man's arms. Perhaps out of consideration for having just absorbed his vital essence, the white-haired man held him gently for one brief second. The very next second, he frowned for being too heavy and unceremoniously dropped him to the ground. Then he took out his phone and called his manager to come clean up the mess. The manager woke Peter up, planning to casually make up an excuse and brush the incident off. Unexpectedly, Peter looked around, then suddenly asked, "Where did that really good-looking, but terribly bad-tempered white-haired man go?" The manager froze on the spot. Wasn't his memory supposed to have been erased? Meanwhile, Peter continued muttering to himself, complaining nonstop. "What kind of person does that? I was just delivering food, that's all. He suddenly rushed out and crashed into me. Fine, whatever. But then he just grabbed me and kissed me." Peter's face suddenly burned red. Only then did he realize that had been his first kiss. Back then, he was just a food delivery guy, yet his first kiss was stolen by a stranger. And no one ever told him that making money had become this hard. As he angrily banged his head against a utility pole, regretting ever taking that delivery, a massive billboard by the roadside suddenly caught his eye. On the advertisement was that handsome white-haired man, the very culprit who had stolen his first kiss. Peter immediately pulled out his phone and searched for information about the white-haired man. Turns out his name was Anshi, a hugely famous figure in the modeling industry. Peter recalled that day. Anshi's manager had taken his jacket and phone number, claiming it was for compensation. "He's that famous, and he still grabbed me and kissed me like that. Could it be he's planning to shut me up with a huge sum of money?" The very next second, Peter cursed himself inwardly. Get a grip. You're money crazy now, aren't you? Still, the clothes had to be returned. So Peter arranged a meeting time with the manager. Only when he arrived did he realize the place the manager chose was a private mansion. Peter hesitated before pressing the doorbell, never expecting the mansion to even have a dedicated butler. He sat stiffly in a lavish living room that completely clashed with his presence, feeling restless and out of place. Then someone walked down from upstairs. Peter sprang up in an instant. Why are you here? This is my house, of course I'm here." Anshi stepped closer to Peter and said seriously, "Do it with me again." Words like "stick close," that kind of bold, dangerous phrasing, was that really something you could say in broad daylight? Are you even speaking human language? You haven't even apologized to me for what happened that day. So I have to apologize first before I'm allowed to stick close to you? Fine, then I'll apologize. Peter's head started aching from Anshi's complete lack of logic. "I don't care whether you apologize or not. I'm not sticking close with a stranger. Hurry up and give me back my clothes. I'm leaving." "So no matter whether I apologize or not, you'll still refuse to stick close with me. Is that right?" "Well then, I've got no choice. I'll have to use that method." As soon as Anshi finished speaking, he grabbed Peter by the collar and forcibly pressed himself against him once again. Peter had run into a pervert. The other party came at him the moment they met, insisting on sticking close to him again. By pure reflex, Peter raised his hand to resist and accidentally injured Anshi's face. Already lacking patience toward humans, the hybrid succubus Anshi used magic to erase the wound on his face, then cast another spell, commanding Peter to sit down and not move. Anshi leaned in close, forcibly pressing himself against Peter once more, then bit into his skin and took a mouthful of blood. In an instant, Anshi's pink magical aura overflowed. Peter's vision blurred, and he lost consciousness. The manager rushed back in a panic from outside, only to discover that his young master had already laid hands on a human. Rubbing his own throbbing head, the manager sighed inwardly. Anshi, on the other hand, wore a bright, satisfied smile. This guy is extremely compatible with me. Just one stick-close session boosted my magic by quite a bit. As a demon, he needed human vital essence to maintain his own immortality. In order to keep his young master from turning into a literal tombstone one day, the manager could only force himself to accept the situation. Together, they pulled Peter into their circle and carefully woke him from his unconscious state. Anshi then revealed his identity to Peter, a hybrid succubus, and sincerely invited Peter to sign a contract with him, to share in his long, endless life. "That kind of nonsense? I don't believe a single word of it," Peter said. "Why don't you make up something else?" To convince Peter, Anshi transformed on the spot, revealing his wings, tail, and small horns. "Now do you believe me?" "I'm a succubus," Anshi said, "and he's a vampire." The manager cooperated, showing his own horns and fangs. The sudden, real-life transformation before his eyes made Peter's brain short-circuit for a full second. The next moment, he slapped himself hard across the face. The sharp pain blooming on his cheek hit him like a truck. This wasn't a dream. He had barged straight into a den of monsters. Peter sprang to his feet, deciding that of the 36 stratagems, running was the best option, and bolted toward the door. Anshi and the manager exchanged a glance. Just 1 second was enough. Then Anshi calmly cast a spell, commanding Peter to sit down. Peter's body immediately disobeyed his will and dropped straight onto the floor. Peter had only gone out to deliver food, and accidentally delivered himself straight into a monster's lair. Not only that, but he was also forcibly marked by a hybrid succubus and bound by a one-sided contract. There were only 2 ways to the contract. The first way was for Peter to also drink Anshi's blood, turning the one-sided contract into a mutual one. Then, with both parties agreeing, the contract could be dissolved. But once the contract was broken, the human party would die on the spot. The second method was to wait. To wait for Anshi to slowly accumulate and temper his magic, and once his power became strong enough, Anshi could voluntarily break the contract himself. "If I rely on accumulating magic on my own," Anshi said, "who knows how many years, or centuries, I'd be making you wait. But I have a shortcut. Our compatibility is extremely high. As long as you're willing to be my temporary partner and we get to know each other deeply, every day, my magic will fill up very quickly. Otherwise," he added calmly, "I'll just have to live like a severely malnourished person, enduring the torment of insufficient magic every single day." When Peter recalled Anshi's pained expression from their very first meeting, he couldn't help but think of his own younger brother sick and bedridden. His resolve to refuse softened, just a little. What made things worse was that if Peter didn't agree to being Anshi's temporary partner, Anshi and his manager would take turns showing up at every place Peter worked part-time. Anshi even had the audacity to chase him all the way to his apartment, loudly and repeatedly listing the burdens weighing on Peter's shoulders: his brother's medical expenses, his own rent, the debts his father left behind after a failed business venture. The final blow was Anshi casually throwing out the condition that Anshi would be on the bottom and Peter on top. Peter was completely defeated. In the end, he agreed to sign the temporary partner contract. Even though it was only a temporary relationship, Peter still pulled out his phone and searched for places suitable for couples to go on dates. It would have been even better if the auntie downstairs hadn't turned off the Wi-Fi,